Thank you for joining Phoenix Behavioral Health, and today we are talking about holiday stress. Although this time of the year can be fun and there's so many things happening, so many things going on, it's very easy to become a little too stressed and overcommitted. And today, this is what we're going to talk about, and we're going to offer some suggestions to perhaps better manage that holiday stress. Today I have Christine with me, licensed social worker and addiction specialist. And welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
And let's start talking about this time of the year. And typically, do you see an increase in clients talking about feeling stressed, feeling kind of burned out a little bit?
Yes, I think this time of the year kicks up a lot of issues for people. Some of the issues that I think people struggle with are just managing family interactions. There's a lot of stress sometimes in who's going to be at the dinner table. Also, if you are the person hosting, that's a whole nother layer of stress in terms of expectations that you put on yourself. And then I think there's also possibly the stress of, for some people, it's a time of loss. You know, they're missing someone at the dinner table, and or their life has changed in some way from the way it was the year before, and it can be a sad time for some people.
Yeah. So we have often family obligations. We may have house guests. We may have travel involved. Sometimes with family interactions, there may be strained relationships, and it kind of makes that comfort level a little bit challenged as well. And then I think oftentimes we can tend to overcommit, and we find that we are just so busy that we don't have enough time for ourselves. And all of that running around, of course, holiday shopping as well. So all of that running around can lead to headaches, can lead to perhaps excessive drinking, perhaps excessive eating, poor sleep patterns, and all of those kind of can trigger that stress cycle. And as you said, for some people, they may not have family members, they may have lost loved ones, and they may be very lonely, and it can be very challenging. And there's another phenomenon that we often see at this time of the year with the decreased light and shorter days, which we refer to as seasonal affective disorder, or SADS. So it's kind of a stress, depression type of feeling that is exacerbated by the lack of light and the short days. And that's fairly common, I think. See quite a bit of that.
Yes, I think I would say the majority of clients report that they are affected in some way by the change of light and the shortness of the days, and just sort of the whole kind of darkness that just descends for the next few months.
There's one treatment, it's called a light box, that not too expensive. You know, you probably get something for around $30, $40, where it's literally a box that's really a powerful light that a client can, sit in front of for about 20, 30 minutes, typically mornings and nights. You could, if you're looking for some kind of help with the SADS, it's something you could perhaps talk to your doctor about, or you can order them. They're fairly easy to find. Some of the symptoms with seasonal affective disorder: fatigue, feeling very fatigued, feeling depressed, might be feeling that you just want to cry, and then that stress of being in a season where, well, everyone's happy and I'm supposed to be happy. That can actually be worse, because now I feel that, why am I so sad, mood swings, irritability, perhaps trouble focusing, could be body aches and pains, headaches. Just something to perhaps talk to your doctor about and to see if there may be some suggestions for that.
Yes, you see a lack of motivation too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably one of the most common things you see. So you sort of get in a funk kind of, and you can't really motivate yourself to, put the Christmas decorations up or go out Christmas shopping, or all you kind of want to do is curl up under the blanket.
Right. Yeah. So this may also be a good time to perhaps join a support group. Or talk with your therapist a little bit. Try and get together a good, perhaps social network, if possible. But also try to just make time for yourself, self-care. We're putting a graphic up that shows some of the suggestions that we have, and we can walk through these because it's really important to find ways to reduce that stress. And also, before we start that, I just want to mention that if stress is really bad, if depression is really bad, talking to your doctor about the possibility of perhaps some medications that could help with the depression if it's that bad, but making sure that it is attended to. So number one, I think really important is making realistic goals, having realistic expectations for the season. And sometimes that can be hard because you commercially, you're looking at the TV, you're hearing on the news, everyone is so amazingly happy and everything goes perfectly well. And that can actually be a stress in itself. So you want everything perfect. You want if you're hosting, you want the dinner to be perfect, the dessert to be perfect, everything that you do, and everyone to be happy. And so if things don't go that way, it can be a kind of a source of feeling I didn't do a good job.
Yeah, feelings of failure.
Yeah.
I think one of the strategies people could work on employing is sort of some time management strategies. If you know that you're somebody who tends to procrastinate or somebody who gets distracted doing several things at the same time, maybe think ahead before your planned dinner. Let's say it's a holiday party or dinner. Think ahead and think of strategies that you can do to make yourself less stressed. For example, can you do some of the preparation the night before? Can you ask for some help? Can you have your partner corral the kids and be responsible for the kids while you have some actual space to be able to concentrate on doing what you need to do rather than trying to cook the meal and chase the kids at the same time. Little things like that can make things go a whole lot easier for you the day of. You can be less stressed and things will come together smoother.
Right. So, having some perhaps realistic goals. I can't do everything, but I am going to focus on A, B, C. And pacing yourself, so factoring in some time where I'm going to have a break. Else, what happens is you're so busy doing everything that by the time everyone's sitting down to enjoy the dinner, you're so tired. So being able to pace ourselves and to not take on more responsibilities than is reasonable, right? I'll commit to doing this, and I know that I can do that, but I don't want to overcommit. And I think in that comes the importance of prioritizing what has to be done. Otherwise, you can get lost in a list of 10, 15 things that you want to do, and it's hard to get them all accomplished. Whereas if you can prioritize what are the 2 or 3 main things, and then perhaps work other things around them, but really be able to focus on those things.
And ask for help too. I think oftentimes, people get very anxious about everything, and then they feel that they have to somehow be responsible for every aspect of the day, of the meal, of the party. It's okay if you share that, if you delegate some of that, and that is giving up some control, which I think some people get very anxious about. But if you can practice doing that a little bit, even if it's a few small things, maybe not the major thing if that's really going to stress you, that'll take a burden off of you and help you, because you can't juggle it all. You can't.
No, and I think anyone who may tend to be a perfectionist is going to have a really hard time with that. But it's really, understanding, what is perfect. Nothing's perfect. If I, put the time and energy into doing a good job, right? Sometimes I can be my own worst enemy, because the way my expectations are just not realistic. Everything has to just be absolutely perfect. And then I'm setting myself up to be disappointed and let down. Also, with anyone who may have anxiety, feeling the need to be able to do everything and that everything's under my control can be really hard. So I can end up not being able to delegate, or it's difficult for me to say, okay, can you do this? I see myself being able to do this job in 2 hours, and by the time I've explained everything, it's going to take 3 hours, so I'll try and do that as well. So being able to let go a bit and say, I'm going to get other people involved, like we said earlier. Also, I think what can happen a lot is you put so much energy into the big day, and then the rest of the time you're exhausted.
Right.
So my one target is, let's say, this special dinner, and I'm not seeing past that, and so all of this energy is put into that, and when I hit that point, it can be this big letdown because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, you haven't even enjoyed the day.
No.
There's probably been nothing enjoyable about it for you because all you've done is worked. Everyone else has socialized. You haven't even socialized.
Right.
So yeah, you have to remember that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So making time to do what you can, but then also to be mindful of being in the moment with everyone else. This is now my time also to be in the present and really enjoy what we are doing today, what we're celebrating today, and try to have some optimism. Sometimes we can get caught up in thinking, oh, this is not going to work out. This is not going to, what if this happens? And then what am I going to do? And so we can become very negative and stressed and worried about that. So trying to have a little bit more of a positive outlook.
Yeah, I think often people look at what they think are mistakes, or maybe they are some mistakes, and they feel they're so glaring and they're so horrible, and everyone else at the dinner table, it's not a big deal.
No one's noticed.
Or it's nothing. It's meaningless in terms of the whole nice day overall. But we tend to, you tend to focus on that one thing that you didn't quite do right, and kind of beat yourself up for it. And it really, in the scheme of things, is meaningless.
Right. And sometimes we can fall into the trap of comparing. Because last holidays were so amazing. Everything went so well. So now that's my standard. And so this season, it has to at least be as good as, or better. So I'm already, by thinking like that, I'm already more likely to set myself up for some disappointment and more stress. So what about people who are feeling lonely? So not everyone has a big family, or not everyone has a happy family. So perhaps, some suggestions for people who are kind of feeling down and lonely for the season. I mean, a good place to start might be looking around to volunteer.
Yeah, a volunteer work can kind of get you out of your head a little bit and get you focused on something positive. I think too, if you're experiencing a loss, let's say it's a loss of a loved one, especially if you pick volunteer work that you think might be meaningful in a way to the memory of the lost one, that can be very positive work that you can do and make you feel very, very good.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's a change of life circumstance. Maybe there's been a divorce, and or your parents have died, or you're in a new city and you're all by yourself. I mean, there's something where you might be lonely. I think it's important to normalize that for yourself, to tell yourself that it's okay for you to be feeling these feelings. I think there's a lot of pressure on people to have to be happy. They have to be so joyous at this season, and it's not always true. It's okay if you're feeling down. It's okay if you're missing somebody, or if your life has changed and it's not quite what it should be. It's okay for you to feel a little off, and to just be gentle with yourself for that, and realize that you'll get through this, and that the next year it won't be as bad. It'll be a little bit better.
Yeah. Sometimes, just looking online for local opportunities to volunteer. Often a lot of different types of things come up. So there's almost always someone who would really welcome, giving a few hours to help out.
Yeah, and I think too, if you can get involved, if you're spiritual, I would encourage you to get involved in spiritual activities, get involved in your church. There can be a lot of positive reinforcement you can get from those activities, and also meet a lot of nice people.
Yeah. And kind of calling on what we have talked about in the past, some mindfulness techniques, being able to be in the moment. Because sometimes we can get stuck looking for the big things that become the focal point of the day or the holiday season. So the big thing is the special dinner, or we're going out to see the Nutcracker, which would be nice. But those are the big things, and so not really spending time to appreciate the very simple things. It may just be looking out the window and watching the snow, right? It may be taking 5 minutes just to, sit quietly. And again, commercially, when we talk about happy, what's happy, we see people shouting, dancing, jumping on the tables, and everyone is so happy. And so you almost feel like, if I'm sitting here quietly, there's something wrong. So really taking even if it's just a few minutes out, for yourself, just to sit back, be nice and calm, and appreciate the simple things is really a big thing. I think too, in the holiday season, a lot of people drink or drink more than they normally would, and when that's factored in with someone who may already be stressed or anxious or worried, can lead to excessive drinking, and then fatigue, and then the headaches, and then more stress. So we can get into that cycle, and that can ultimately increase feelings of anxiety or depression as well.
Right. I think, you have to be careful how much you drink during the holidays because you're right, it can throw everything off. Also, alcohol is a depressant drug. So if you are somebody who may already be feeling kind of down because of the holidays or maybe are affected by seasonal affective disorder and then you drink on top of that, you're kind of magnifying the potential for depression. So I think you do have to be a little bit careful.
And, sometimes just perhaps doing something differently, trying something new for the holiday season, I mean, I've heard a lot of different ideas, suggestions. Sometimes people would just say, this year we're just going to stay home and be quiet. And not be running around and going out and doing all kinds of things. It may be for some, perhaps a winter vacation. Involving some travel or something. But although we can get caught up in holiday traditions, which can be enjoyable and great, sometimes it's nice to perhaps break the tradition, do something completely different.
Yeah, don't be afraid to sort of do something outside the box.
Yeah, perhaps just celebrate in a different way.
And I think too, what you mentioned, we're so used to these big gatherings and all sorts of festivities, and sometimes it's just nice to maybe have an intimate family dinner and open your presents together and just sort of maybe be a family away from all the hullabaloo sort of that goes along with it, and you can, it can be a nice family time.
Yeah, and get everyone involved, not just in the fun, but in the cleanup as well. That's important, and and it's. I have a lot of clients who will say, I'm looking forward to the holidays, but it's going to be me who's doing everything. And I don't want to ask for help because then I feel like I should be able to do it, right? So you can really get trapped in that. But so being able to communicate that, well, I'll do this, but no, so-and-so is going to help here, and make it a whole family effort.
Yeah, that goes back to what we talked about in the beginning in terms of expectations and, sort of putting undue pressure on yourself and unrealistic expectations and, needing to ask for help.
Yeah. And another big thing that I don't think we've mentioned yet, but just financial stress.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Huge financial stress.
You can end up spending way more than you planned or that you actually can afford. So I think it's a good idea too to have some kind of a budget, and then you don't get into this situation where we bought all of this, we spent all this money, we still have 6 more people we have to buy things for, and now it's panic. But to be able to say, let's allocate this for the children, this for so-and-so. So we have an idea, so we can track it, so we're not in a position where that creates even more stress. And finally, what we often see too is that, again, we're looking forward to the holiday itself, and then we're not planning out. So the holiday's finished, we're tired, we're exhausted, and that can be a time when you really do see a lot of depression.
Right.
After the holidays. Right. So, early January is not unusual to see people coming in saying, I really feel down.
Yeah, and January and February are the height of the sort of the darkness and the cold, and there's no events happening, and it's a tough time.
No. So thank you for joining us today as we were talking about the holiday season, and we hope that we've come up with some helpful, positive suggestions. And if you have anything that you'd like us to talk about specifically, please call us at 508-623-3931 or email drparks@phoenixinfo.online. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.